I apologize for the length, but I want to give the best picture I can, but without disclosing too much. My wife and I are from a third world country, and we have been living in the US for the past few years. I have an employer-sponsored visa, and my wife is on my visa as a spouse. My wife has multiple sclerosis, Mississippi. When I met her, she was very ill. She developed the disease at age 17, and I met her when she was 27. She had not been able to go to university, work significantly, and had been bedridden for several years of her life. In our country, there are very few doctors who specialize in the treatment of MS, and even less medication and facilities available to treat MS. People in our country who have MS or other major diseases suffer a lot and have a significantly reduced lifespan. In spite of this, my wife was one of the bravest, hardworking people I have ever met. She was very positive, determined, and one of the hardest workers I had ever met, even being sick most of the time. We got married, and about a year later, I got offered a job in the United States, and I took it and we moved here. I was ecstatic because my wife would, for the first time in her life, have available the necessary doctors, tests, and medications that would be needed to treat MS. My wife was also very happy because she also wanted to go back to university, which was her dream but had been too ill to do back home. When we moved to the United States, as soon as we got health insurance, my wife was able to see a doctor who specializes in MS, and she was able to start on medication that is not available back home. After a few trials, she was able to get on a medication that helped her. She needs to get it once monthly as an intravenous infusion at her doctor's office. My wife was also able, due to her improved health, to go back to the university like she always dreamed after some time. However, while my wife's physical health improved significantly, her mental health suffered. Starting back school was very difficult for her, as she had not studied in years. Being away from her family, the culture shock, and missing our home country were also significant stressors for her. For my part, I was also not the best husband. The time we spent together, our intimacy life dwindled and disappeared. I was working at least 60 hours a week, sometimes more. I was the sole earner in our family. When she started school, I did the vast majority of the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry, etc., so she could focus on her studying. I also paid for a substantial amount of her school expenses. My wife often expressed that she was overwhelmed with school, missed home, missed her family, and she was frequently angry. We had frequent fights. I tried my best, but I was exhausted from my work, financial stress, and most of the household responsibilities. Where we live, there is a small to medium population of immigrants from our home country. I encouraged my wife to make friends and hang out with them, to keep some sort of contact with people, food, and a culture we were familiar with. I tried to hang out with her when they would have these group get-togethers, but because of my work, I frequently did not have the time. This seemed to help my wife because her mood improved, and she seemed happy to have people from our home country around to talk to and relate to about the difficulty of moving to and adjusting to a new country. About halfway into her degree, I found out that my wife had been cheating on me. My phone was not working well, and I asked to use hers. And while I was using it, the guy she was cheating on me with texted her. I looked at their conversation and I saw everything. She had started cheating on me a few months after she started school. The guy she cheated on me with was someone from the immigrant community from our original home country. I immediately confronted her about this. She initially denied it, but then admitted to everything. She said that she did it because our relationship had suffered. We were not having intimacy, and for the first time in her life, she was healthy. She told me that for most of her life, she had been sick, and she had been deprived of her youth and the experiences that most people would have had when they were young and had gone to college. Now that she was healthy, she felt as if she had been given a second chance at life that she had missed out on. We had a huge argument that night, and I told her to leave the apartment. But she refused. I told her that if she refused to leave, I would leave instead and go to a hotel. She objected to this, and she physically blocked the door and also physically restrained me from leaving. I was unable to leave the house. She apologized profusely to me, said she would not speak with him again, and asked to go to marriage therapy. I did not want any of this. I wanted to get separated and divorced, as cheating is a red line for me. However, part of me felt guilty for not being there for her and not paying enough attention to our relationship. I also did not want to divorce her, which would cause her to lose her visa and return back to our home country, where she would get very sick. I reluctantly agreed to therapy and started therapy a few weeks later. We went to therapy for a total of about 6 to 8 months. In therapy, she promised that she had stopped seeing or communicating with the guy she had the affair with. However, I was now very suspicious of her, and I checked her phone again and saw that she had been lying. She had continued to communicate with him and had gone to see him at least twice, even while we were in therapy. When I found this out, I was devastated. I told her I was done with her and I wanted to get divorced. My wife, however, started threatening to unalive herself if I ever tried to leave her or divorce her. She also said, which is true, that if I divorce her, she will have to go back to our country and she will get very sick again. And divorcing her will be tantamount to causing her to suffer and die an early death back in our home country. The medications she takes are still not available in our home country, and at least one of them needs to be done via an intravenous infusion monthly at the doctor's office. We have spoken to a couple immigration attorneys who have told her that unless we are married, the only way for her to get a separate visa and remain in the United States would be for an employer to offer her a job and sponsor her visa. This would not be very likely because her major is not a very in-demand field. It's something like art history or liberal arts. I told her this would not be competitive, but this was her dream degrees. Now I do not know what to do. She is now done with school and unemployed. The only way she can remain in the US and work is if she stays on my visa. She adamantly does not want to get divorced and wants to work on the marriage and remain together. I cannot stand being around her and do not want to continue in this marriage and would like to get divorced. I do not want to keep supporting her, and I would like to move on with my life. However, if I do this, it is almost certain that she will have to go back to our home country, and her health will suffer greatly. I feel guilt-ridden about this, and I feel as if I am trapped and cornered with no way out. Please help. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Your wife sounds like a terrible person. You are working so hard, paying for school, handling most of the household chores, and she cheats on you. Stop being a fool. Separate immediately. Divorce her as soon as possible. Let her find an immigration lawyer who perhaps can find a way for her to stay. Tell her to get a job. You move forward. Go and live your best life. I wish you well. Comment 2. I would proceed as if you are getting divorced, that is, separate. But maybe don't divorce until she gains employment, if you are interested in supporting her, which you don't have to be. I would note, however, that MS itself isn't a fatal disease. Typically, complications from MS are what unalives you. Divorcing her will not unalive her. It may sound harsh, but she is just using you. Now for the update, thanks for sticking around for this update. So the other day, I thought things couldn't get any worse, right? Wrong. I found out my wife's been using my credit card to pay for her secret meetups with that guy. I mean, the nerve. She's been racking up charges at fancy restaurants and hotels. And I didn't even notice until the bank called about suspicious activity. When I confronted her, she just shrugged it off like it was nothing. Said she deserved to have some fun after all she's been through. Can you believe that? And then, as if that wasn't enough, I got a call from her doctor. Turns out she's been skipping her MS treatments. The doctor was concerned because missing doses could set her back big time. When I asked her why, she said she didn't need them anymore, that she felt better than ever. But I knew it was a lie. She just didn't want to be tied to anything that reminded her of her illness, or I guess me. I was furious, but also scared for her. I mean, I still care about her health, even if I can't stand being in the same room with her. So I did the only thing I could think of. I reached out to her family back home. I thought maybe they could talk some sense into her. But when I got her sister on the phone, she dropped the news on me. My wife had been telling them that I was the one having an affair, that I was the reason she was unhappy. Her family was furious with me, and they wouldn't listen to anything I had to say. Feeling like I was up against the world, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. That's when I bumped into an old friend from our immigrant community. He looked worried and said he needed to talk to me in private. We went to a coffee shop and he told me that my wife had been spreading rumors about me, saying I was hurtful and controlling. He said he didn't believe her, but others might, and that it could get me in real trouble if the wrong people heard. I was in shock. My own wife turning my friends against me, using my money, and risking her health just to keep up her lies. I felt like I was in some twisted game where she was the puppet master, pulling all the strings. And the worst part, I had no idea how to cut them. I went home that night feeling defeated. My wife acted like nothing was wrong, like we were just a normal couple. But I knew better. I knew that behind her smile, there was a plan. I just didn't know what it was. Thanks for reading this mess of a situation. My dad plays favorites with my sisters and pays their bills while I drown in debt. So I expose his pettiness at the next family gathering and watch him squirm as I tell everyone how he chose money over his own daughter. I am 28 years old. I have 3 sisters. One is 29 years old, another is 30 years old, and the youngest is 25 years old. Our parents, who are 63 years old, father, and 61 years old mother, got divorced 12 years ago. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for 20 years, while my dad has a PhD in nuclear engineering and has a well-paying job. After being out of work for so long, my mom had to find a job and now works remotely in customer service. Her income is just enough to cover her monthly bills. When our parents divorced, I chose to live with our mom, while my sisters stayed with our dad because they didn't want to leave the house he got in the divorce. Over the years, my parents' relationship has improved, and they now spend holidays together for the sake of their kids. Neither of them is currently dating anyone. However, in the beginning, they didn't get along well, and this strained relationship existed up until I had my son, who was also their only grandchild. I have always been closer to my mom than my dad, because I believe he treats me differently compared to my sisters. My mom says this is because I chose to live with her instead of him. My 29-year-old sister has a PhD in economics and works as a professor at the university. She is unmarried, has no kids, and lives alone. My 30-year-old sister holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and attended 2 different graduate programs, but she didn't complete either. She plans to return to grad school this year. She is married to a woman who also works full-time, and together they earn around $100,000 per year. My 25-year-old sister went to a community college under our dad's urging, and he paid for her tuition. However, she did not continue her studies. Instead, she obtained her real estate license, with my dad funding the course and associated expenses. She currently lives with her boyfriend, but they are not married and do not have children. I also attended the same community college as my younger sister and pursued a university transfer program for a bachelor's degree in psychology. However, after transferring, I decided to change my major to nursing. I graduated from nursing school last May and am now working as a nurse. When I started community college, I was 19 years old living with my mom and had no job since I was a full-time student. My dad made me take out student loans because my mom couldn't afford to pay for my education. Similarly, my older sisters also took out loans, but their expenses were higher since they attended universities. I met my husband while I was still on track to complete my psychology degree. However, we paused my education when we discovered my pregnancy in 2019. Between 2019 and 2022, I had my son, got married, and returned to school, this time to pursue nursing. My husband and I began paying off my student loans after we got married, and by the time the pandemic hit, we had managed to reduce the loan balance from $12,000 to $4,000. When I decided to enroll in nursing school, I chose a private school due to their night class options, which allowed me to be home with my son until my husband returned from work. The tuition for this school amounted to $27,000, of which $7,000 we paid out of pocket, and the remaining $20,000 was financed through additional loans. I graduated last year with a total of $24,000 in student loan debt. My husband has a successful career and holds a doctorate in chemical engineering. He works as a scientist for a university health system and earns a salary of $140,000 per year. We also own a home, have 2 pets, a 4-year-old child, and I am currently pregnant again. Considering my student loans, credit card payments, car payments, bills, and mortgage, we have very little extra money left. I was working, but I recently had to stop due to my pregnancy. However, I plan to continue working, although my previous job was physically demanding. This pregnancy was achieved through fertility treatments, so I am feeling particularly anxious about any potential complications. Recently, I discovered that my dad has been fully paying off my older sister's student loans every month. He also covers the auto insurance for all 3 of my sisters. He used to pay for my insurance as well, but he stopped once I got married. However, he continues to pay for my oldest sister's insurance, even though she is married. I am shocked by this revelation. I thought my dad's decision to stop financially supporting me after my marriage was a result of his conservative and old-fashioned mindset. But now, I realize that he still supports my married sister. It's confusing to me. My dad seems to spend a lot of money. He owns 3 cars, one of which he gave to my younger sister and still pays for. He also owns 2 houses in different states. For Christmas this year, he only got me 2 sweaters, while my sisters received 10 presents each. He has a budget set for each child's Christmas gifts. But after I got married and had a son, he divided my individual budget by 3. So now my son and husband only receive a small gift from him. This is in stark contrast to my mom, who has allocated separate budgets for her son-in-law and grandson, despite not earning as much money as my dad. Similarly, my in-laws also create additional budgets for my husband and our son. Despite all these financial disparities, I am not estranged from my dad. I see him frequently and have been invited to his house for dinner tonight. I want to bring up all these issues, but I don't know what to say. My sisters have made it clear that they do not want to get involved, as they don't want to jeopardize their present financial support from our dad. I'm unsure about what to do. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. How can you not afford all of your bills? Your husband makes over $100,000. Who gives a damn what your dad does? Talk to him and say you don't appreciate the bias, but it's his money in the end. There's no reason you and your husband should have that much debt. So, quit with the foolish spending habits, go to discount grocery stores, thrift stores, garage sales for clothes and such. Pay off the credit card debt if it is rolling over each month. Then, tackle whatever else with the highest interest rate. If you have 2 cars with loans, sell one or trade for something older and used. No reason to have the nice newest thing if it is just going to bankrupt you all, especially if the house and car purchase was at a ridiculously high interest rate. The old man down the block selling his well-maintained 15-year-old Toyota Honda, whatever, will last another 15 and will be nice when you see how much money you save. Comment 2. So there is a lot going on here. First, your husband makes a lot more than all of your 3 sisters. He probably assumes your husband should take care of you. Your sister, who is married to a woman, he may feel that he should take care of both of them because they are women, and they make $40,000 less than your husband. And that is without you working. Your other 2 sisters aren't married. They have to support themselves by themselves. You say he is bleeding money, but I highly doubt that. In fact, he may be overextended. He is probably paying for your sisters instead of putting away money for his retirement. He is 63. He should be thinking of his own future, not any of his kids. I would not bring it up. Your dad does not owe any of you anything. I think if you bring it up, you may guilt him into giving you money, but is that really what you want? Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around. So, the dinner at my dad's house was a disaster. I went there hoping to clear the air, but it turned into a mess. My dad announced he's retiring early, and guess what? He's giving my younger sister a hefty chunk of money to start her own real estate firm. I couldn't believe it. There I was, struggling with loans and trying to keep my head above water. And he's just throwing money at her like it's nothing. I tried to keep my cool, but then my oldest sister, the professor, started bragging about her latest research grant. She's always been the golden child, and it was clear that she was Dad's favorite. I felt like I was being walked all over, and I just sat there saying nothing. It was like I was invisible. The next day, things got even worse. My husband lost his job. The university health system he worked for was downsizing, and just like that, our main source of income was gone. We were already tight on money, and this hit us hard. I was angry and scared, and I didn't know what to do. I called my mom for advice, and she told me something that shook me to my core. She said that when they divorced, my dad made a deal with her. He'd pay for my sister's education and expenses, but not mine, because I chose to live with her. It was like a punishment for siding with her during the divorce. I was stunned. All these years, I thought it was just dad being dad, but it was intentional. I was fuming. I wanted to confront him, but my mom begged me not to. She said it would only make things worse. So I kept it to myself, but it ate away at me. I felt betrayed by my own father. Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, my car broke down. I had no way to get to my prenatal appointments, and we couldn't afford the repairs. I asked my dad for help, but he said he couldn't spare the money because of my sister's new business venture. It was like a slap in the face. But then, something unexpected happened. My 30-year-old sister, the one who's married, came to me. She said she knew about the deal our dad made with our mom and that it wasn't fair. She offered to pay for my car repairs and help us out until my husband found a new job. I was shocked. She had always been neutral, never taking sides. But here she was, standing up for me. It was a small victory, but it meant the world. For once, I didn't feel alone. I had someone in my corner, and it gave me the strength to keep going. I started looking for a part-time job that I could do from home, something to help us get by until my husband found work and I could go back to nursing after the baby was born. Life's been throwing curveballs at me left and right, but I'm learning to catch them. It's not easy, and I'm still angry at my dad, but I'm not going to let it keep me down. I've got my mom and my sister, and we're going to make it through one way or another. Thanks for reading. My cousin's parents shamed him for his weight and stole his self-care products. So I forced them into therapy and took control of their finances. So a few days ago, my cousin came over because my uncle had to speak to me about financial stuff. During the 6-hour visit, my cousin basically exposed his parents for their extremely mentally hurtful behavior towards him. I already hate his parents, and I guess I am even more valid in my hate. First off, my cousin is overweight, not obese, just overweight. Why? For most of his life, he was getting takeout 5 days a week because his mother refused to cook. So, surprise, surprise, now he's overweight and doesn't know how to eat healthy. Along with taking shots at his weight, even though he's actually much skinnier and healthier than both of them. He plays like 3 different sports and is a very active kid. Like I said, he's overweight, but not by a lot. During our conversation, he parroted much of his parents' opinions on his body as fact. His hair is a mess because he is a curly-haired kid like his mother and father, but they are making him shampoo his hair every day. No conditioner, no moisturizer. His hair looks dry and brittle. His skin is dry, most likely because our family has a history of eczema, and these people got him using a 3-in-1. Anytime my cousin wants to start caring about himself, they call him a girl's name and basically bully him until he's in tears. They don't allow him to get anything under a 90 and are constantly humiliating him. My cousin is Hispanic, and they moved to a white suburb, and now he's getting bullied for being the fat Mexican kid. We aren't Mexican. Basically, my cousin found himself wanting to look and be someone else because of this. He also thinks that a girl would only want to be with him if he had money, so he wants to be alone. He is 11. What is this? Why does he think he's already this unlovable and ugly at 11? I mean, I know why. It's just so insane to me. I felt like this starting around 9 years old, but I felt like I was an adverse case. I don't want my cousin to feel like this. So what I did was buy him deodorant for tweens, moisturizing soap, curly hair products, and a bonnet. This totaled up to around $100. His parents make good money, and I'm a poor college student. This is actually insane that I care more about his well-being and physical health than them. I'm just afraid that they are going to bully him for taking care of himself, especially because of the bonnet. Though he's just wearing it to sleep, so it shouldn't be that bad. Edit. I got him a bonnet because he is having bad hair breakage, because his mom is forcing him to shampoo his hair every day. Bonnets help lessen hair breakage while sleeping. He seemed really excited to have the opportunity to take care of his hair and himself. So it's not like I forced him. Plus, I'm worried he is walking around school smelling. Being the smelly kid is not fun either. I'm just so worried. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I don't think they'll know whether he shampoos his hair every day. He just has to get it wet every day. Maybe use a tiny bit of conditioner to make it smell like he used a product. Comment 2. I know it isn't as good as a bonnet, but he can possibly get a silk pillowcase. I feel so bad for this poor boy. You're doing a really good job. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around. Well, a lot has happened since I last wrote. So after I got my cousin all those self-care products, things took a turn. He started using them, right? And you wouldn't believe it. But his parents flipped out. They actually took everything away from him. Said he was being vain and that boys don't need that stuff. Can you believe that? They threw away the bonnet and the hair products I bought him. $100 down the drain just like that. But here's where it gets worse. They started making him do extra chores as punishment for acting out. They said he was getting too big for his boots, trying to change the way he looks. So now, not only is he still dealing with the bullying at school, but he's also got it even worse at home. And me? I'm just standing there watching it all happen. I'm angry, sure, but what do? I'm just a college student with barely 2 dimes to rub together. I can't take on my uncle and aunt. They've always been the type to bulldoze over anyone who disagrees with them. And I've never been one to stand up to them. It's like they've got this power over me, and I just can't shake it off. But then my cousin, this 11-year-old kid, does something that just blows my mind. He goes to school and talks to a counselor about everything. The bullying, the way his parents treat him, all of it. And the school calls in my uncle and aunt for a meeting. I wasn't there, but I heard it was a real showdown. The counselor laid it all out, and my uncle and aunt had to sit there and take it. They couldn't just walk all over the counselor like they do with everyone else. After that meeting, things at home got a little quieter for my cousin. His parents are on thin ice now, with the school watching them. They even had to sign him up for therapy, which is a big deal because they never believed in that kind of thing. They're all about tough love and keeping up appearances. But here's the kicker. My cousin, he's starting to stand up for himself. He's been sneaking some of the products I bought him and using them at school. He's got this little rebellion going on, and I can't help but feel proud of him. It's like he's doing what I never could. He's not letting them walk all over him anymore. And then, just when I thought things were settling down, my uncle loses his job. It's like karma came around and gave him a good kick. They're freaking out about money now, which is ironic considering how they never cared about spending it on my cousin's well-being. So now they're coming to me, asking for help with their bills. Me, the poor college student they've always looked down on. And I'm torn, Part of me wants to help because they're family, but another part of me remembers all the times they've made me feel small and insignificant. In the end, I decided to help them, but on one condition. They have to keep taking my cousin to therapy, and they have to let him take care of himself the way he wants to. They agreed reluctantly, but I can tell they're just biding their time until they can get back on their feet and go back to their old ways. But for now, my cousin's got a bit of a reprieve and I've got a bit of leverage. It's not much, but it's something. And maybe, just maybe, it's the start of something bigger. Maybe it's the start of us not getting walked all over anymore. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.